Okay, I had this idea where if we talked about getting a cold open, we could get like a really meta cold open into the podcast. And then I would just go right into Welcome to Beacon of Creation, a weekly podcast on game design through the lens of Magic the Gathering. I'm MonoWhiteBorder, so that means I must be joined by Tim.
This time you're joined by Brad, otherwise known as Redbay.
Magic recently, ever since Thunder Junction, has been on a little bit of a hat kick. Cowboy Junction was, let's put a bunch of Magic characters and make them wear cowboy hats. And Murders at Karlov Manor was, let's take a bunch of characters and put them in fedoras.
The two most recent sets have done a pretty good job of, here's a character, here's a hat, let's put that character in a hat. And I think it's like it reeks of cliche in how does this even function? You can't just really say, oh, omen paths, because like how did the person even get the hat? Like that's its own like question unto itself. But when you're thinking about it from like a fun perspective, it's pretty high on my list of like, hey, take this character, put him in a hat. What does that mean? What does a hat tell you about where that person is, what they're doing? It says a lot without actually having to spend a lot of work on it.
Yeah, the Thunder Junction pre-release was one of my most fun pre-releases, and I think it was in no small part due to the little plastic cowboy hat that the game store handed out along with your pre-release pack. What we were thinking about doing today is, instead of trying to break down what makes a hat set work, what doesn't make a hat set work, do we like hat sets, just having a little bit more fun with it. Redbay developed a special generator that is going to give us a legendary creature and a hat that they're wearing, and we're going to just live design some Magic cards based on those results.
I've got hats in here that we have not previously seen in Magic sets, and then some hats that we have definitely seen before. I tried to just use legendary creatures that have previously worn a hat. So we're going to just change the hat that they're currently wearing to a different hat.
I did not notice in my initial run through of these creatures that they were previous hat wearers. It's taken me most of my life to become a hat person, but I've become a hat person as of late. First up here, we have Mikaeus the Unhallowed wearing a sports hat. What do you think of when you think of sports hat?
I'm thinking like a ball cap or a usually with like a logo of some type. Like this is your avid sports fan. They've got a team. They're going to all the games. They know the team's history going back 50 years. They have a favorite player from 37 years ago that went on a big playoff run and then got tragically injured in the last game of the year. And I kind of like Mikaeus wearing the sports hat because like zombie fanatic, instead of like I only care about brains, it's like I only care about, I don't know, the Pacers or something like that.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about the Pacers. They are currently down 3-0 to Tim's Boston Celtics. So if he's a fanatic about the Pacers, I got bad news for Mikaeus. I like your idea of the sports hat being a fanatic hat. Kind of works well for Mikaeus. He was formerly the highest ranking member of the Church of Avacyn, under Avacyn herself. He held the title Lunarch, highest rank within the church. But eventually he became unhallowed, and turned into this zombie. So he died, I guess, in some sort of attack, and they were able to retrieve his corpse except his heart, which Geralf had promised to give to Gisa. However, the Lunarch would not be entitled to the blessed sleep, for Liliana would raise him again to destroy all that he fought so hard to protect in life. So it sounds like Mikaeus, a little bit of a Fairweather fan. Do we want to encapsulate cheering on your team? Do we want to encapsulate the almost knowledge check of knowing all the facts about your team? Maybe the good question to ask is, what sport do you think Macias is a fan of? Hockey guy, baseball, basketball?
Ooh, what sport would be so Innistrad?
Baseball is a very orderly sport. It's very steeped in tradition. I feel like Macias is probably a very traditional guy.
Yeah, I could get behind that, and because we're specifically talking about Macias the Unhallowed, so
Mm-hmm.
we got this zombie thing going on. So like, it's entertaining to think of the zombies maybe hitting like a skull around with a femur bone or something like that.
Horrifying to think about zombies desecrating the best creature type of skeleton by using their bodies as baseball instruments. When I think of baseball, when I think of baseball guys, I think of like stat guys, um, they're tracking how many RBIs a guy has. They know who the home run leader for any given season is. You ask them like, what's this guy's on base percentage, all that stuff. I'm wondering if there's a way for us to capture that Macias is like a numbers cruncher, a numbers guy. He knows, you know, every hit that his team's ever made, every player's on base percentage. He knows the home run leaders. He knows who has the most strikeouts in a single game. All those fun fact kind of guys. I feel like maybe Macias is that kind of guy.
Maybe that translates to like a creature tutor kind of thing. Like, I'm going to go and
Ooh.
find the exact sports player for this specific need. I'm going to fill the team out with. So maybe Macias the coach as well is another kind of flavor option we could go down. Well, we're stewing on that. Macias the Unhallowed, 3 black, 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 legendary creature, zombie cleric, 5/5. It has Intimidate. Whenever a human deals damage to you, destroy it. Other non-human creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Undying.
I wonder if we can play on that flavor of Macias caring about your other creatures. Macias the Lunarch has a similar flavor of he cares about go wide strategies, supporting your other creatures, and +1/+1 counters. I feel like maybe we can keep that in. Maybe Macias the coach makes sense. He's coaching up his zombie baseball team. Baseball is the only sport where managers still wear a uniform for some reason. I like the idea of Macias in a baseball uniform, even though he will never run the bases ever again. Maybe never has run the bases. Maybe he cares about +1/+1 counters and searches for creatures based on the number of counters that they had on them or something. Like if a
Ooh.
creature dies, you search for a creature with a number of +1/+1 counters, or with power and toughness equal to the number of +1/+1 counters or something. Probably mana value would make the most sense there.
Yeah, that's playing off of +1/+1 counters in a new way. So like, whenever another creature you control dies, if it had +1/+1 counters on it, search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less, where X
Mm-hmm.
is the number of +1/+1 counters on that creature. Something like that.
Yeah, that it plays into the counters thing. It's a dice trigger, which plays with the undying thing that we had before. Kind of still has that statistician thing. Okay, this guy's down. I got to bring off somebody off from the bench that kind of matches his energy. I got to bring up a new player here.
Do we think Macias should grant some +1/+1 counters somehow?
Mm-hmm. He's kind of coaching him up. So, Macias the Lunarch had a tap to put tap. You remove a +1/+1 counter from Macias the Lunarch, and you put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control. Macias has his guy. He's in the bullpen. We need you to come in and make a couple strikeouts. He kind of can give him a pep talk. Maybe we can think of some way for Macias to give the creatures on the battlefield a little pep talk.
First thought is like mentor.
Oh, yes.
I'm teaching you how to play the game. I'm gonna get you bigger and stronger to play professional ball.
Mentor is a little strange. It is definitively red-white because it's a Boros mechanic. But we do have a white-black creature with Mentor as well. Felisa, Fang of Silverquill. But attacking and giving a +1/+1 counter, That doesn't feel too distinctly black. Or maybe is Micaeus baseball coach? Is he a black-white creature? Is being the leader of a team, does that intrinsically bring back some of that white from Micaeus a little bit?
Yeah, I think I'm really liking doing like a black white identity, especially from when you get black and white together. They tend to be like, hey, we care about creatures, but specifically our own creatures,
Mm-hmm.
and that's that. I think a baseball coach or any type of coach is going to be like, yeah, I love my team. I would do anything for my team. Get those other teams out of the way because we're the best. We're the winners.
Yeah, I like it. We'll give this Micaeus mentor. What do we think power and toughness wise? Micaeus is both a 0/0 and a 5/5.
2.5, 2.5.
The perfect middle ground.
Yeah, mentor was kind of anemic on creatures with like less than 3 power, so I feel like we got to get in that 3 or 4 zone for that mentor trigger to be meaningful. So maybe a 3/3 or a 3/4 or something like that.
I'm a sucker for an odd power and toughness. 3/4 sounds good. Instantly makes me want to give it vigilance. This is the official #1 vigilance podcast. It's always nice to give yourself a few bonus points and tack on vigilance there. Mana cost wise, should he lean slightly more black, slightly more white? He's a triple pip black in Micaeus the Unhallowed.
What I like about those extra pips is I feel like we can shave off that generic mana. We can get kind of aggressive with just that white, black, black. I like that.
All right. So maybe this he's got some team in him, but he's the kind of coach that's probably gonna yell at you a little bit. He's gonna chew into you a little bit. That's what the double black is. Micaeus baseball coach, white, black, black for a legendary creature zombie, vigilance, mentor. So whenever this creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature with lesser power. Whenever another creature you control dies, if it had a +1/+1 counter on it, search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on that creature. You probably put that creature into your hand, right?
Yeah.
All right. And then you'll put that creature into your hand. And he's a 3/4. Oh, man, maybe this was a month ago back in our set mechanic draft. Gabe and I started pitching a baseball set. So this is the second part of the baseball set. We had pitch cards as a part of it, where you exile a red card from your hand to cast a spell for free. You cast your fastball, and then you have your baseball coaches joining as well. Cool. The next one is from Ravnica. We got Aurelia the War Leader, but in true Swords to Plowshares fashion, she's put down some of her fighting garb and she's donned a farmer hat. I'm kind of picturing like a straw hat here.
Yeah, like a good farmer hat. It's got a pretty wide brim on it to protect your face and neck from the sun. Not quite a cowboy hat. It works, but this is definitely somebody that's not spending a lot of time on a horse. They're out in the field. They're taking care of the corn before the upcoming harvest. I like Aurelia as this is an angel that constantly fighting, constantly trying to defend the denizens of 10th Street and Ravnica and all of that, and just like, all right, I'm done. I'm I'm going out to the field. I'm going to take care of some crops now, because Ravnica, I bet, needs food.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big populated country or plain, right?
What perhaps a potential spoiler alert, but Aurelia was wearing a fedora during Murders at Karlov Manor, and she did uncover that Tristani, in charge of Selevznia, may have been or was the person responsible for the murder.
That's right.
So she needs somebody to fill that role. Do we maybe would we personally put that role of handling food and distributing food to the denizens of Ravnica? Would we necessarily want to put that in the hands of the Boros? Maybe not, but that's how, in this theoretical world, maybe that's how the Ravnica is handling it. Ravnica, Aurelia's decided to step up. She's like, we gotta, for now, we can't patrol the streets anymore. We gotta put food on the table. Our base card here is Aurelia the War Leader. Another very pip-heavy card. 2 red, red, white, white. Flying, Vigilance, Haste, 3/4. Whenever she attacks for the first time each turn, untap all creatures you control. After this phase, there is an additional combat phase.
I think a color identity switch is probably the biggest thing in terms of like, hey, I'm putting down arms. I'm picking up the tilling equipment. So, and then the thing that I kind of like about the farmer hat compared to Mikaeus' sports hat is we got a lot of farmer hats in Magic already. So things like landfall, things like food tokens, those are the kinds of things that jump out at me right away for obvious mechanical hooks to make that hat work.
She does have a lot of go wide cards, cards that care about little creatures, making your little creatures do more, or attacking with a lot of creatures to get around your opponents. Maybe a Convoke feels very natural in that way, but that still leaves some. We're still kind of missing the harvest flavor. I don't feel like Convoke puts together that, like, I'm out in the fields making my crops, tilling the earth.
I'm thinking like the way that we can maybe capture this specific Aurelia is still try to get that that relentless assault style trigger that get an additional combat, but maybe we're sacrificing food, or maybe it's like related to like a landfall ability or something like that to tie into the farmer hat somehow.
Mm-hmm. I think of there's a cards that care about kind of collecting stuff. Cowboy Junction has Magda. She makes treasure, and then once you have enough treasure, you can sacrifice that
Mm-hmm.
treasure in order to get a dragon. So maybe we can think in that same route. So maybe you can do something with Aurelia in order to get food or an additional land trigger or something, and then you can sacrifice that food, sacrifice maybe 5 food, and you get an extra combat.
Yeah, so I'm thinking whenever Aurelia attacks, create a food token. Then you may sacrifice 5 foods. If you do, untap each creature you control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase.
Yeah, I like that. So theoretically, what you're looking at is, 5 turns of Aurelia attacking, and then hopefully you're making food from other creatures to ramp that up a little bit. Is getting only 1 food at a time too much here? Aurelia is probably going to be a mythic, so you're looking at 5 combats in a limited environment to try and get there. Is that enough?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. So maybe it needs to be something like whenever a creature you control attacks, create a food token, which also supports that kind of go wide. And
Mm-hmm.
then I still want like Aurelia herself to engage somehow. So it's not just like you play Aurelia, you attack with 6 creatures, and now you get like unlimited combat steps or whatever. So
So food is really tough because food pretty accessible to make. So you do have to have enough food. You do have to require enough food so that's difficult to trigger this ability. But you don't want it to be too easy or a give me to get there. So whenever a creature you control attacks, create a food token. Makes me wonder, is that too easy of a thing to get? Is that too easy to acquire?
yeah, how does Battalion read?
Battalion is whenever 3 or more creatures you control attack. So it's whenever that thing and 2 other creatures attacks. This is also this is a very aggressive farming that Aurelia is doing.
Which feels like if Boros were to do farming, it would be some aggressive farming, right?
This almost feels like maybe Boros isn't doing farming. Maybe they're going house to house and collecting food and then saying they farmed.
You feel like
Yeah, maybe can we make this a little bit more green? Maybe you were talking about a color shift at the outset.
I'm having a hard time disconnecting farming from like some type of land mattering aspect, just because
Mm-hmm.
it's so flavorfully connected.
Okay.
But if we, because like whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a food token that like works for a farmer, and then if we keep this Aurelia attacks, you can sacrifice some foods to get untapped steps, then we're still kind of in that Naya space.
Yep.
The only example of landfall make a food is Tireless Provisioner from Modern Horizons. And you can make a food or a treasure.
When something like whenever Aurelia and 2 other creatures attack, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Maybe you should just be able to search at that point because you're going through so many steps, so you can search for a land card.
Yeah, Battalion in green, and then like getting access to some like stronger effects because you're jumping through that hoop of attacking with 3 creatures is kind of interesting.
Yeah, so we're kind of thinking of this battalion idea. Whenever Aurelia and at least 2 other creatures you control attack, search your library for a basic land card and put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. And then you added on this extra line of create 2 food tokens, which I like. It increases our number of food you're making. You're looking at a 3 attack window here to get there. Because right now we're at sacrifice 5 foods. If you do, you get the extra combat.
Maybe this other thing is like, maybe it's sacrifice 5 foods, untap each creature you control after this phase. There's an additional combat phase, like it's like an activated ability instead of an attack trigger.
Yeah, probably something you want to do. Activate only on your turn or only during your second main phase or something.
Activate as a sorcery.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so where we're at, Battalion, whenever Aurelia and at least 2 other creatures attack, search your library for a basic land card, put on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Create 2 food tokens. Pretty juicy Battalion trigger. Then you can sacrifice 5 foods. Untap each creature you control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. Activate as a sorcery. If you get 8 foods at some point, you can do this twice. That's pretty scary. How are you feeling about this, Redbay? Do you think this has got enough going on?
Does Aurelia still have like flying? I know some Aurelias also had trample.
She definitely. So she's got to have flying. She's an angel. She has wings. That's a given. I think haste might be nice to give this battalion some reliability, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we could probably leave off vigilance so that like that battalion attack is a more risky. Like you're getting the 2 foods, but Aurelia is not going to be there to block during your opponent's turn. Agrarian Mobilizer. That is the perfect name.
I feel like that captures the intensity of Boros trying to farm.
Love it.
I'm looking at this. If we make it aggressively costed, I'm thinking maybe a 5 drop here. Maybe like 2
red, green, white.
Red, green, white. And so kind of your dream play pattern here is turn 5, you've got 2 other creatures down, you drop Aurelia, you swing in, you go get a land, you get your 2 food tokens, and then if you keep up your board survives, there is this big payoff at the end. If you've been creating food other ways, you might even get it right away. I think maybe this is pushed enough so that people don't look at battalion here and groan. That's my only concern is Battalion, I feel like, is a little bit unloved. And I want to make sure that when people see Battalion on this card, they're thinking, yeah, okay, this is worth it. This is worth going after.
You're thinking like maybe a 4/4?
Yeah, that seems reasonable to me. 5 mana, 4/4 flying haste. Yeah, nice. I'm liking that. I like how that came together. It feels like the type of aggressive farming only Aurelia could pull off. I'm thinking we'll probably have time for one more. I don't know if we'll get a second one in.
Hakon, Stormgulled Scourge, and the hat that we've got picked out for Hakon is a construction or hard hat.
Let's get a little lore on Hakon here. He is the knight that like casts from your graveyard or something, right? Notably different than Dakon.
Yeah, so Hakon's original card is Hakon Stormguard Scourge, 1 black, legendary creature zombie knight. It's a 3/3, and you can cast Hakon Stormguard Scourge from your graveyard, but not from anywhere else. As long as Hakon is on the battlefield, you may cast night spells from your graveyard, and when Hakon dies, you lose 2 life.
And then Hakon, he's the leader of the Order of Stormguard, which is the evil half of the Ice Age story. So he was fighting King Darien at the Battle of Keldor. I guess him and Darien kind of went 1v1. Darien's men were afraid that Hakon was going to kill the king, so they rushed him, and he was able to fight some of them off, but eventually perished. Here's, I think, the most interesting fun fact from this wiki page. He seemed to be 10 feet high. I don't know if that means that he was 10 feet tall or he just carried himself tall. So let's make sure we really capture that in this card.
And with a sword that must have been twice that. So that's a 20-foot.
Oh my gosh. He was covered in black armor that somehow gleamed in the dark. What is with this? He really left an impact on people. Hakon in a construction hat. You know, I think Hakon's probably like the foreman of a construction site. You know, he's kind of telling people like, hey, move this boulder here, put this rock here, you know, watch the ballast of the, I don't know a whole lot of construction terms.
I agree with you. What I'm really liking about that little tidbit that you found in the wiki is like Hakon is gonna move some beams. He's 10 feet tall, right? Like Hakon is gonna get in there. He's gonna put that wall up by himself.
Yeah, yeah. What is is Hakon a human in his card?
Zombie knight.
Oh, zombie knight. Okay, so he is undead. So he's back again. He's probably staying in night. I imagine he doesn't lose his ordinance. I don't know if there's another good creature type for building. What are a lot of dwarves in Magic the Gathering? Those are the people I think of as
artificers.
Soldier, scout, artificer. Yep.
I'm maybe gonna float out that we might be dealing with maybe prequel Hakon. Not quite a knight yet.
Ooh.
Doing work out in the world.
This is
So maybe we've got Hakon the human artificer instead of the zombie knight.
I'm in. Yeah, he didn't want to be zombie teaming with Haidar to counteract the world spell and consequently the Thaw and Dominaria. He just wanted to build houses, you know? A bridge.
Oh, I like bridge. Hakon Bridge Builder is number 1 on my creature name list right now.
He should have gone over to New Capenna, so he could probably hang out with the Beamtown bullies, have a good time. The first space my head goes to when I'm thinking of building is the brick counters from Amonkhet, which I really liked flavor-wise. I'm not sure how the brick counters actually hit as far as play goes. I don't think they were popular in Commander. I don't know if there's a way to tie that in with Hakon, but it's kind of where my mind first went.
Oh, we got to redeem brick counters. That's the other fun part of this is we're going to make it so people want to play with the brick counters.
I've dropped brick counters triple question mark in the dock, so hopefully they can come back. So the thing about brick counters is that they were intrinsic to themselves. You do it, you add a brick counter to the item, and then once it's 3 brick counters, it can do something awesome. I don't really think it makes sense for Hakon to put brick counters on himself and then he gets better, but maybe adding brick counters to artifacts randomly. Maybe Dakon comes with his own project. When Dakon enters the battlefield, create a bridge token, and then you add brick counters to your bridge. And you got to build your bridge while you're playing Hakon. Create a legendary artifact token named
Stormguard Bridge.
Stormguard Bridge.
We'll tie back.
Named Stormguard Bridge. Maybe it's indestructible too. And then we can have something attack. Yeah, he makes a great bridge. This bridge is staying up. This bridge is perfect. Maybe his whole goal was connect this bridge with King Darien and have a great peaceful existence with the Keldorians, and then it all went to hell. Tragic story. how does Hakon put a brick counter on Stormgold Bridge? Does he tap to do it?
I like tap to do it. Hakon is the one actively working on the bridge. Maybe it's add a brick counter to target artifact, so that if you want to play with those Amonkhet artifacts, you're not stopped.
Yeah, we're thinking a little bit more commandery. Maybe this isn't for a 60 card format.
Yeah.
Here's Battlefield. Create a legendary artifact token named Stormgold Bridge with indestructible. Tap. Put a brick counter on target artifact. Perfect card. All done. Maybe you need some sort of passive ability. Okay, I guess here's the question. Do you want to outline everything about Stormgold Bridge on Dakon, or do you want to make a separate token called Stormgold Bridge, and that token has some intrinsic power to it? Because like a very logical place to go would be like Hakon gets +1/+1 for each brick counter on permanents you control.
Let's do that.
So right now we have a dude that enters and makes the best darn bridge you've ever seen. And then he can put brick counters on that bridge to buff himself. And he can put brick counters on other artifacts too, if that's relevant. What's he missing? What does he need? Is there some way we can tie in his old card a little bit? So his old card, you could cast him from the graveyard, but not from anywhere else. You can cast night spells from your graveyard, and when he dies, you lose 2 life. Maybe should he be able to like repair artifacts from the graveyard somehow?
I don't know if we want to remove brick counters from stuff, given the fact that Hakon is getting like that bonus. But maybe we could tap some number of permanents with brick counters on them to return an artifact from the graveyard to the battlefield.
So you can put a brick counter on target artifact you control. Then you may cast target artifact card from your graveyard with mana value less than or equal to the number of brick counters on artifacts you control. Maybe we don't need the you control here.
Yeah, I think that you're already incentivized to target your own artifacts. So because you can't cast like you put a bunch of brick counters on your opponent's artifacts, but that doesn't let you cast artifact cards from your graveyard. What a weird card.
Yeah. This is a very weird card. Do you think this Stormgold Bridge needs to do something, or do you think it just needs to be a dirtily indestructible artifact here?
People kind of like Darksteel Relic, even though they shouldn't, right? Like
this is definitely the type of card that caters to a very specific type of commander player. I'm probably that type of commander player. I like the symmetry of just making him 1 white to go with his 1 black. I feel like white's a very buildy color.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I could also see blue here if we want to complete the spectrum, get all of our colors covered for the episode.
That's what Wizards of the Coast doesn't tell anybody, is that they pick their mana costs based on balancing content for people consuming.
Yeah, literally what development does is they record a fake podcast episode and then go through and assign all the mana values and make sure it's all even. And then they never release the episode.
But if they did,
people would probably be upset, unfortunately. I'm making him a 3 mana 3/3. Oh, maybe he needs to be
bigger?
Smaller? He gets bigger with brick counters on stuff.
Right, yes.
So maybe he needs to be Is he a 1/1? That's probably too small. 2/2. Me in the middle. You happy with this, Redbay? Do you think we need to massage any more areas of this card?
This is where we got to with Hakon Bridge Builder, but I think the Beacon of Creation community can help us cross that bridge of making the perfect construction Hakon.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, if you have any ideas for maybe if Stormgold Bridge could be a little bit better, maybe we can give him a better bonus with these brick counters, let us know. Here's what our final card is. Hakon Bridge Builder, 1 white, for a creature human artificer. Remember, this is pre-Hakon's Zombie Night Days. He's a 2/2 that when he enters the battlefield, create a legendary artifact token named Stormgold Bridge with Indestructible. Hakon gets +1/+1 for each brick counter on permanents you control. And then tap, put a brick counter on target artifact. Then you may cast target artifact card from your graveyard with mana value less than or equal to the number of brick counters on artifacts you control. Kind of sweet. Kind of sweet. How are you feeling about this, Redbay? Do we think there's a set here? Do we think that any of these hats have potential to be a whole set? Can we do the baseball hat set? Can we do the construction hat set? How are you feeling?
What I appreciated about this exercise is that I don't know if every hat can make a set, and but for making an individual card design, it's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Now the construction set is the one that I think is maybe the most appealing to me, because I do think that building and brick counters and making something bigger out of something small is something that is intrinsically interesting to people. I think that's something they can get excited about. I think that's got the most legs. Now, the baseball one is probably the one where it's like, how difficult could it be to put all of our favorite characters in baseball hats? Maybe you just ignore the mechanics of it and you just go for it. Like they did the Sacred Lair, right, with all the planeswalkers in baseball hats. So it's already halfway done.
We'll share the full Excel spreadsheet so that people can look. Maybe people can share what hats we didn't include that you think there's something there. I definitely think of the ones we covered today. Construction hat sounds the most interesting. There's probably some interesting tropes you can do about different types of builders. You could have some very orderly builders in maybe white and blue, and then maybe red is a more chaotic type of builder. You could have people that are actively trying to destroy the buildings. I think there's probably something there that you could actually play with. But that is our episode for this week. June has just started when this episode is releasing, which means we have a new June design challenge. Our challenge is halfway there. June is halfway through the year. The challenge is design a commander that has partners with and give it an existing ability word from Magic. So we'll provide a link to all of the different ability words. There's about 50 or so that we were looking at. Yeah, we want those commanders to have partners with. And we want you to come up with a name for it too. So you don't have to design who it's partnering with, but we just would love to have a name to kind of hook on to. And then we have a couple bonus points at always. These are totally optional. Redbay's bonus point is halfway there. Whoa, living on a prayer. Give it some type of holy flavor. So make it an angel or a cleric, life gain, resurrection, or very prayerful, very faithful. And then Tim has a bonus point here that's flavor blasted. So give us a quick flavor synopsis of the partners. That's going to be due June 28th. The goal is we kind of want to have a design challenge where the winner kind of gets something a little special here. Whoever the quote-unquote winner is or our favorite submission is, what we're going to do is we're going to design the other half of that partner on the pod later. So that's a lot to take in, but Redbay, what are you thinking as far as an ability word that maybe resonates with you?
When I look at this list of ability words, my favorite amongst them is Converge, the ability word from Battle for Zendikar, where it cares about the number of different colors of mana you spend on a spell. There's also Domain on the list. Those two, they have that kind of same function of forcing you into that 5-color zone, which I really like. I also saw Parade with exclamation mark.
An unset mechanic, Parade.
Yeah, that one cares about how you order your creatures, which, I mean, that's very entertaining. So if somebody wants to go down the Parade route, I think that would be really fun as well.
Yeah, we're super excited to see what people come up with and see what we get ourselves into with the future of designing the other half of that. Additionally, we got a couple different events going on the server. You Make the Pack 3 is ongoing. We are at slot 7, 8, and 9. We might be just wrapping it up as this episode releases. make sure to hop on over to the You Make the Pack channel and see the awesome pack that we made. We kind of did a new format this time around, Redbay. How have you liked it so far? Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, so we picked the first 2 cards in this pack blind, and then had to try to flavorfully connect those cards with the remaining slots in the pack, which makes for a really interesting puzzle. So we've got like Lorwyn meets Ravnica, lots of recurring Lorwyn themes, but with a little bit of, what's going on Lorwyn. Why is Melik of like the Izzet Guild specifically interested in this plane? And then what I've really liked about this pack is everybody's got kind of a thing going on. So, I'm photoshopping all my cards. MonoWhiteBorder keeps submitting a new common dual land for every slot, which is you gotta have a shtick, right?
Yeah. Hopefully by the time this episode's released, I've already gotten 3 or 4 common dual lands in the pack, but no luck so far. But hopefully the future has changed. Last big event here going on in the channel, starting the day of this recording, the day we're recording here, we have launched the first qualifier in the Design League. Design League Emperor Redbay. Do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, so Design League is a custom design competition. It's going to be running over the course of the next 6 weeks as of May 26th, as you said. Qualifiers are the first half of the week is a prompt and give everybody a chance to make a card. And then the back half of the week is giving our esteemed panel of judges the opportunity to review those cards. If you win the qualifier, you get a coveted slot in the tournament. Make sure you jump in there, make a card. While I say it's competitive, it is still ultimately for fun. So, please come on by, take a look. Even if you're just taking a look at the cards and you want to say, hey, I like this card, I think all of our designers really appreciate that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Even if you don't feel like you have time to jump into any specific qualifier, definitely hop over there and just see all the neat cards coming in. All right, so that's our podcast for the week. You can join the Discord link in the show notes. Redbay, thanks for joining me for the hat episode. Is there anything else you wanna plug, touch on, shout out? Movie references? Normally I'm the movie guy.
I just rewatched Tom Hanks' Castaway, and I could not, for the life of me, remember the first 45 minutes of that film. And then when I rewatched it, realizing, he works at FedEx. That's why he's surrounded by FedEx packages on the island. Something that blew past me through my first watch, but great film. Really enjoy seeing a person, taken to their limit.
I haven't watched Castaway in a little bit. All right. As always, you can reach me in the Discord, MonoWhiteBorder, Redbay, same for you.
That's right.
League Emperor Redbay in the Discord. Thanks for listening. And then I'll be done talking and the music will play.